4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, what's going up, guys? Did I say what's going up, guys? Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Did You Eat Yet?
What's up, everyone?
I'm your host, Harrison.
I'm your host, Alex.
And today, we have a very, very special guest. We're so excited to have her. Close friend of mine. I've known her for a long time now. She's a designer, one of the most artistic people that I know. Stella Lee, everyone. Let's give it up.
Hello.
What's going on, Stella?
Hey, Stella, how are you doing?
Happy to be here.
Thanks for coming. Hey, so tell us, what exactly do you do? How are you spending your time Monday through Friday lately?
So I work at Victoria's Secret. My title is Surface Designer for bras.
Surface designer. Oh.
Yes. So it's basically the silhouette is already designed by other designers, and whatever goes on top, like the prints, graphics, and colors, is what I basically assort.
That's so interesting. Like you're literally designing the surfaces of the lingerie. Like, what does that mean? Are you like printing? Are you like etching in, or maybe like what do you call it? Like embroidering in?
So the company is like actually pretty interesting because it's so separated. It's very specific. We have specific categories for print team. We have a print team, we have a graphics team, and then we have a concept team. And I'm none of them.
Okay. So what are you?
So that's why I say our company is very unique in terms of the way teams are divided. So they design all of those, and I pretty much take every bits and pieces of already created pieces and put them together in the most aesthetically pleasing way.
So in terms of the person who's like envisioning out the final product, who is that? Like how are you working with them to do your job?
It's a very corporate hierarchical structure. So there is the VP, and then the SVP, and then the surface lead, the senior designer, associate designer, and then the assistant designer.
Yo, how do you get any work done? This is a long chain of
bureaucracy.
hierarchy.
It's a lot of meetings, so I wouldn't say it's the typical like boutique high-end company, a design company, and it was pretty like a hard transition for me coming from an art school, for sure. Yeah.
So by the time the silhouettes get to you, do they already give you a limited subsets of materials that you can use, or is it pretty open and free to what you can choose from?
It's very specific, and I know exactly what I'm supposed to do.
Oh, so someone essentially like you already know what the end goal is, and you're just doing your job to get to that end goal, right?
Exactly, and create a package of some sort to communicate that to the factory so that they are able to execute.
Now, as like an artist background, and then as a designer professionally, you went into art because you want to create. You don't want to be inhibited necessarily by any structure or any corporation. You just want to freely create. Do you feel ever that your creativity is almost like suppressed a little bit in the corporate structure? Like, isn't it kind of almost like paradoxical that you want to be an artist, you want to be a designer, but then you have to work corporate and then get kind of suppressed by the system? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I've been working here for over 2 years, and I think I still feel that way every day. So it's worse when I first started. Like first year, I was like, what am I doing? Because I'm on the computer.
Yeah.
I had never left my desk. Everything's done on the computer. Everything's communicated through emails. So then what am I actually designing? I was like, nothing. So that struggle really hit me hard. And I essentially had to come to a compromise where, okay, I am living in America in a capitalistic society where the definition of success is based on how much the company really
sells and makes.
Yeah, exactly. And this company sells a lot. The bra, I think like the bare cost is about $6, and if it goes anywhere above $7, it's expensive.
Interesting. Okay.
Right.
So it's really cheap, and the panty, it costs at 75 cents.
Hold up, what?
To $1.25.
That's crazy.
And how much are they selling it for?
They sell it for anywhere from $7 to $15.
That's a nice markup right there. I like that. I like that profit markup.
Yes. So it's moving very, very fast. Like I'm working on things that are going to launch next January, for example, but we have no time to really concept.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But there is value in concept, no?
Right. And like I was gonna say, if you guys aren't doing the concept, is someone already doing the market research at higher
The
level?
concept team is.
I see.
See
So-
where that like the separation is.
So would you say that ideally you would want to be on the concept team and less on the like what you do now?
I mean, like that ideally, yes, but it's the concept team here is also very specific to what they do. It's not exactly what I would want to do.
But you guys work separately. That's the biggest point, right? You guys
Yeah.
work separately. There's one team that just creates the vision, and then there's
Yep.
one team that actually creates and like works out that vision. Correct?
Exactly.
Interesting, and that's so interesting because I know that you used to work for Nike.
Mm-hmm.
You were a part of a program at Nike, right?
Well, it was a internship, 3-month internship, and I worked for Nike sportswear department in SW.
And like, what was that like? You know, I heard so many things about. Obviously, Nike is the number one sports apparel retailer right now in America, and they're that because they're so innovative.
Right.
They're so they're producing new products every single month. Like, I have this thing, dude. Like, I promised myself, I'm only gonna buy one pair of shoe this month. Like this is the last shoe I buy, and then as soon as I buy a shoe. Next week, there's a brand new shoe, and I'm like, I want that one too. The
I mean, they're so
innovation is
creative,
crazy.
Sure, yeah.
The innovation is
Yeah.
crazy. And do you feel like you felt that kind of innovation at Nike?
100%. And I can tell you straight up, they focus so much on the conceptual portion, and everybody does it. Regardless of what level you're at. I think it's a matter of like if you're in an innovation section versus like an inline section. Like innovation starts here and then it really trickles down to how does someone wear this every day. So it can be this crazy looking, like in crazy colors and crazy shape at an innovation level, but it does need to be edited down so that you and I can wear to work
Right.
or on the streets. You know?
So how much of a especially in tech, they always talk about these hackathons where people come up with pretty crazy ideas, but it just never comes into fruition.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to like put a percentage on that creativity to production, like how much actually goes through, you think?
Oh, I think not as much as you would expect. Sometimes these innovations are in the innovation lab for like 10 years, just because they can't figure out how to make it edit or mass produce it.
Also, sometimes it might cost too much.
Exactly.
That's crazy. The scale probably is a huge thing, but I know like Nike really recently released that Joyride technology, the thing, the sole with a little bit of like balls. It looks like Dippin' Dots.
Yeah.
Obviously that probably was a technology that they either quickly manufactured or they must have held on for a long time.
Yeah, so I actually never saw that like in innovation state at all, but Flyknit is actually a really good example. So for the upper sole to be knitted in such a scale that they can mass produce, they've had like hand knitters come in and like show people like how a knitted structure is made, and then they take that to the next level scale, and they have a Flyknit department completely separately, and only a few people can go in, even if you're a Nike employee.
I actually have a pair of Flyknits and they feel so light. It just doesn't even feel like I'm wearing shoes. So I know that there was a lot of thought that was put into it to make it feel like a running shoe. And then,
but it looks like really intricate. Are you saying that humans like hand make
So
Flyknit?
No, it's
machine made.
It's
Right,
machine
okay.
made, but the machine can only produce one sole at a time, as opposed to when you're cutting pieces like fabric, you can cut multiples at a time. Like the second to the amount that's produced, the ratio is very different. So it's like by nature more expensive.
Interesting. And what are some cool projects you worked on at Nike?
They actually had a couple of sustainable materials that were laying around that nobody really wanted to use because they simply looked ugly. So it was a really good cause, except those shoes need to look cool. And these materials just simply did not deliver the pristine look. They didn't look luxurious. It was more specifically leather that they wanted me to work on. So they wanted me to like kind of take a look at this and see if I can revamp it. So I took the leather and did some like printing on it, and I laser etched it. And yeah, so that was kind of selected to be part of their like concept presentation with an internal Yeah.
And you use that material on which shoe again?
Oh, Air Force One.
The Air Force One. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy.
It was
How much of that was leather, like percentage wise? You think it was a
I would
majority of
say
the shoe was leather?
majority of the shoe was leather, and then it was like coated with plastic to hold things together. Yeah.
And so like they just have like a lab of a bunch of different technologies that you can kind of utilize and use.
Oh, yeah,
and
for sure.
3D printers, etching, and like
It
lasers.
was so that was like one thing that every designer would dream of if you go to a company, that they would just kind of, you're free roaming with free materials and free equipment, and it's one of the high
And all
tech.
you do is kind of have like a project. Like, hey, this is a problem. Find a solution. Go out and
Exactly.
just like do whatever you can to like do what you need to do.
Yep.
But since there's such a low percentage that actually makes it to production, do you feel like employees would feel a little down that a lot of their creative ideas don't ever really come to fruition, right? Because you always want that ROI, like, oh yeah, I made this.
I mean, I would say that that's like most cases for any designers at any design companies is there's always competition within the company too. So the one thing that I really liked watching, which I didn't participate as like a full-time designer, was that they would lump designers together from different departments and come up with a story. And then each team would kind of compete, and that's like how they would really select which design would go next to the next round, and etc. And I would say actually one of the key things that I learned from Nike that carries with me is storytelling.
Interesting. How so? Like what does that mean in terms of how you change your design or how you think about your design?
And honestly, I'm still learning how to do it because it's such a intensive, like hard, different way of thinking. Is usually we look at trends and then we look at, oh, that's really cool. Let me translate this in this way. And that's how designs are usually like created at a fast-paced company. But at Nike, they would start with the word, what does fast mean? And define that. Like everybody, that can mean differently.
So many things.
It can mean differently for a runner versus someone that like someone in Korea just walking and taking the bus, transportation, someone in New York City.
You got a fast swing, you got a fast runner, you got fast pace. Efficiency is fast, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It can mean so many different things. So they would narrow it down, edit it down. But what was impressive to me is that they would put a white paper on the wall and ask that question. Anybody walking past by that wall can write. And that's how they ideate. One of the ways of ideating. And from there, they start storytelling what does fast mean to this specific situation, to this specific group of people. So that they can relate.
They're just like levels that they're just breaking it down into.
And like you're saying, that's one of the ways that they ideate. What are some other ways that they ideate?
That was one of the ways they ideated. And another way is really just getting together at the studio. And talking and bouncing ideas off of each other. And one of the most important thing is a sketch. But sketch can not only mean actual drawing, it can also mean like a physical, like cardboard sketch of a shoe.
Like some sort of any sort of physical render.
Exactly.
Interesting.
I feel like this explains a lot because I remember when I was watching some of your like IG stories, you would show that you're like collecting random garments of like cloth, or you're like, hey, if you want to donate something, just give it to me instead.
Yeah, like, to us, it straight up looks like trash. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like, what kind of like projects did you end up with? Some of the material that you got?
So
like, this is probably your own personal projects, right?
It is. And I was actually trying to take this idea of storytelling into my personal life. So I was looking at like when I was in the subway, super industrial, right? The subway itself, and then the bricks, like all the ceramics.
Subway station too.
The station itself, the metal. And then I saw this girl wearing this woven bag in the summer with a linen dress, like a white linen dress with just like light shoes. And it was such a contrast to me that in such an industrial setting, someone can be so like natural,
like rustic.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, interesting. Like, but it works because this is a style that someone likes, and then this person lives in New York City and this person takes the subway. So I just took that a little literally, and then I said, okay, what if I bought a bag of raw wool from this company in Boston? So I got raw wool. And then what if I like get shoes from other people that are already made, consider it like plastics and like man-made material. So let's just shove these two different materials together and see how they work.
Interesting. So you got like the synthetic from the shoes, and then you got the natural from the wool. That's so
Yeah.
interesting. And what have you found? Like what are you wanting to do with like that idea?
I think I was pushing to see, just first of all, to see how they look together in general. And it's really hard to make them look good.
Yeah, I mean, if you're pushing these
Yeah.
boundaries, there's like a certain point where it's just like,
Yeah.
this doesn't work. But at least you don't,
Yeah.
you know right away at that point. But if you don't try it, then you wouldn't know, right?
Yeah, and I need to keep pushing it because there is a way. There is a way to make it look good. I just don't know it yet. I
Interesting.
just haven't like found that yet.
Interesting. It's almost as if like the answer is already there. You just haven't found it. Like, but it's interesting because
Sounds like a movie quote or something.
right. I sound like a freaking kung fu master. But here,
Oh
but
my
what I'm
gosh.
trying to say is that when we think about creation, like design creativeness, it's like there is nothing, and then we want to go out and create something. But she's saying it's already there. We just haven't found it, which is a different perspective. No, I feel like that's very different in terms of perspective.
I mean, I think what you're saying is correct too, but our eyes are so used to some sort of perfection and we strive to look at perfection, just as our ears like perfect sound and perfect pitch.
Oh, there's like already a benchmark that we don't even know, like an uninformed bias of
Like when we look at someone that's really good looking, why are they good looking? It's because
we don't know.
Symmetry.
We just go
it's symmetry. There's a certain ratio that our eyes are attracted to. And I think design works very similarly to that. Whether that's color balance, whether that's ratio, like proportion. I think it's definitely like the way we dress is to even out our proportion based on our body type too. You know?
Right. And like in your project, you really want to put 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 imperfect things together to see if it could kind of form into this
Exactly.
nice balance.
And I don't really know what will look good with what yet, but I only know what I know. So I'll start there and try different things to see if that works.
Man, that's so interesting. But I know you obviously so creative. You have a lot of other passion projects too. I know you have your Instagram, your profile. You got behind_NY. Tell me about that. Why did you want to start that Instagram channel?
Yeah, so I started taking pictures of just everything when I first came to New York. People were
Like everyone
interested.
does. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
like everybody does. And I found myself taking a lot of photos of people from the back, just because I don't have the courage to take photos from the front. but
What's the reasoning behind that?
I mean, sometimes I do ask people, like when they're literally standing in front of me and I love their coat, I'm like, hey, can I take a photo of your coat? And they generally, in most times, say yes. Behind New York came about because I had so many photos of people from behind that I was like, maybe I should do something about it. Like there should be a reason why I'm taking so many photos.
That's so interesting. Is there anything more aesthetic that like from the back? When you take a picture from someone from the back than there is from the front, like, is there a different type of kind of feel or vibe from it?
I think it's a little more than just like a feeling and a vibe. But I remember the first time I ever took someone from behind, and they didn't even know what kind of surroundings they were at. It was a really vibrant coat next to all the fruits and vegetables at a grocery store, and just like her posing, the way she posed. She was effortlessly standing, so she wasn't even posing actually. She just looked great.
Wow.
Like just
Wow.
that like whole
Picture perfect.
the whole situation was just great. And I was like, I need to capture this moment in my head, and she like moved immediately after that. And I was like, I don't think she even knows what she looks like from behind.
But you knew.
But I know.
But you knew.
And there's so many situations like that where a man is holding a red plastic bag or many plastic bags and a whole like red outfit next to red poles in the subway station.
Oh, it's like in that moment, he or she doesn't even know
Exactly.
that they look fire, and they're
Yeah.
like they're matching their surrounding, and they're
Exactly.
embedded in like this overall aesthetic.
Yep.
It's not just their clothes.
Exactly.
It's not just their hair. It's like everything about that whole situation
Exactly.
just works.
Yep.
Right.
That's so interesting. But then, like, okay, so you're working a 9 to 5. You're working at corporate. How do you find the time to balance out your side projects, your side hobbies with your job?
That's a good question because I have found it very difficult. Lately, just our company situation, we've been working a lot harder, and
Has Corona been like a huge thing? Like,
actually, Corona has been a huge help.
how
I-
come? How come?
Corona is holding off a lot of deliveries right now, so like it's a different team that's having a hard time. For designers, we are
So you
holding
have an
off.
opportunity for
Yeah, we're
creativity, is
holding
that
off
what you're saying?
until they're like all landed and they're they know.
That's so funny.
But yeah, Corona has been a help. But in general, like when we're in the office, I just did not have the energy to do anything after work. So I haven't actually gotten back to it for a while, and I think about it every day, and I want to get back to it. but
Yeah,
it's
maybe
hard.
this is the opportunity to respark your
I know.
passion project. you know?
Yeah.
Man, that's so crazy. Is there like if you had infinite time and infinite energy, what's something that you would love to do right now?
I would like to actually learn how to code.
Oh, really? What brings
But-
you
no,
to say that?
That's like a totally that's a curveball.
No, just like
Wow.
very minimal though. I don't need to know like the extensive amount of it. I wanna incorporate some electronics to fabric and textiles just because that's what I studied in school, and I want to get back into that later. I think it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I remember
Oh.
talking to you about that, about fashion tech specifically, and I know there's like smart luggage, smart bag, smart backpack. What are you interested in?
I'm interested in not making. I'm interested in making smart textiles not tacky. So a lot
They're
of
really tacky right now, man. I'm not gonna lie. They're like it's weird looking.
Wait, like tacky in what way?
it's just
It looks like nerdy, geeky. You know, it just doesn't look sleek. It doesn't look luxurious. It doesn't look
it doesn't
premium.
look natural. You mean?
Natural. It just doesn't. It's just so like I don't know. It's not like maybe it is an idea thing or like an association thing, but it just doesn't look like something that anyone would wear. It's kind of like the Google Glass. It's just who wears that? No one wears that.
yeah. I mean, for example, Chanel made a like light up purse on their runway a couple of years ago, and like just flat out, yes, it lights up, but
What
what?
does it do?
Like, I don't want to wear that. I don't want to carry, even if it's Chanel, I don't want to carry that around with me. Like, what is something that I can show off, like a street style that is very subtle, but also is a statement piece? It's not for everybody, I'll say. It won't be for everybody.
Right.
But yes, I do want to create something that could be used for everybody if it's possible. And that's kind of the area that I want to tap into and potentially collaborate with other designers that could use, or engineers too.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't really know specific in the design industry, but at least in the tech industry, like there are a lot of developers that talk together and they kind of like start side projects. Is that pretty typical with other designers, and how does that work?
I think it's supposed to be. I just haven't tapped into that yet. I want to expand my industry. I do want to expand my community in that level too.
Your
for
network,
sure.
right?
In my network, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for at least in the tech industry, again, it's like we use like Meetup.com, and
Yeah.
people do like talks, and that's how we kind of just get that ball rolling.
Yeah.
But maybe something similar like that exists as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and in my industry, the hate for our industry is what joins us together. You know, like you can't make friends until you're complaining. You know, just like I hate that
Oh
client.
my
Oh, like that guy's the worst. That rep. That's how
Yeah,
we
yeah.
bond. So,
Yeah.
but as we end up this episode, we always like to end our episodes with my favorite segment. We call it hot steaks. Play on words of hot takes. So hot steaks. What was one of the hardest stories that you can remember coming to New York, living in New York? You have such a diverse background. You've been in so many different countries and states, working in various companies, all focusing on design. But what was kind of one of the hardest stories you remember in New York, at least?
I think the hardest part was that I had my hopes up too much, and it was really, really hard to find a design job, just period, as a designer. And I think when I first came to New York, I came with one suitcase. I lived in 5 different homes that first year with my suitcase, and living a nomad life is pretty normal when you first come to New York. But I think in a personal level, I graduated from a school that taught me how to think a certain way about my work and myself. Whether that was accurate or not, I was so full of myself that I thought I could do anything and conquer anything. And then it just did not happen. And it could be partly because my the way I was going about my work or finding a work wasn't necessarily effective. Looking back, I could have done many things differently, but at that time, I didn't know what to do and how to do. So it was pretty much of a miracle that this job landed on on my lap, and I can say flat out it wasn't because of my skills.
Man, that's so crazy to hear because to me, you're probably one of the hardest working, most creative people that I know. And so, honestly, just to hear that is super inspirational. I'm not even going to lie.
Yeah, and then there's a saying that, not everything's a failure. It's just a great learning opportunity. So you just evolve and get better. And, the creativity side is so like, the opportunity is just there, right?
Right. So as we end up this episode, do you have any advice for anyone who's an up-and-coming designer, anyone who wants to kind of do what you do?
Yes, that's a good question because I would say try to talk to as many people as possible, as much as other people, more specifically designers, may not want to talk to you and be standoffish. That's definitely normal in the design world. I think believing in your vision is really important. As cliche as that sounds, it will get crushed so many times by the corporate or your manager or your other friends, and just continue to sketch.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining our podcast. We loved having you. We learned so much.
Thank you.
And everyone watching and listening, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you follow us on our Instagram. That's Did You Eat Yet Podcast. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Did You Eat Yet? And also, Stella, you want to throw out some handles?
Like Behind New York.
That's behind _ NY
Yep.
on Instagram.
Don't forget the underscore.
That's very important. And we're making. We'll see you again next Tuesday. We have new episodes every single week, every Tuesday on your favorite streaming platform or YouTube. So thank you guys. See you next week.
Thank you. Bye.